Have you ever thought to yourself while playing vanilla Pokemon that you always ended up using the same powerful Pokemon team, with something that looked like your starter, a Route 1 normal type, strong mid-game mon, water type, HM guy, and random 6th mon, and wanted to try something completely different? Introducing Pokemon Wishy Washy White, a ROM hack of Pokemon White 2 that allows Pokemon who don't always see the limelight to get their moment in the sun. This is a game that follows what's known as the trashlocke genre of games, that bans a myriad of stronger and in many cases, averagely powerful Pokemon, and leaves the player to fend with the cards they're dealt. This game completely changed every single encounter table, starting out on Route 19 with pretty terrible Pokemon, and then getting to the endgame with some very decent Pokemon that can just about get the job done against the towering Challenge Mode Elite Four and Champion. Yeah, this game uses the Challenge Mode teams on normal mode, removing that little bug that everyone kinda knows about. We're going to be playing this game with our traditional Hardcore Nuzlocke rule set on screen for you all now. There's also another rule around EVs that we'll get to later on. With that, let's dive into the bin and take on Pokemon Wishy Washy White. But before we get into that, you should all subscribe. Over 70% of you guys recently are not subscribed to the channel. Like, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button to get more peak Pokemon in your feed. You know you want it. We land in Aspertia City, where we can yap with our mum for a second before being introduced to the rival and his sister. It's also at this point where we encounter Bianca, who gives us a starter Pokemon of our own, and these are changed to be stereotypically worse options. The first of which is Paris, a dry skin or effect spore Pokemon that gets access to a great number of status moves, including the amazing Spore. Slugma, a fire type, which is honestly all that needs to be said. Fire types are normally great offensively, so I'm sure you can imagine how rare they would be in this game. And finally, the general pick of the bunch, Clamperl. This Pokemon is pretty bulky and has access to the amazing ability Shell Armor, and it has great defenses to use Eviolite with, available in Castelia City, while having a decent enough special attack stat to carry it decently into the mid-game. I picked Clamperl for my second attempt, as my first run crashed out against Cheren, and we get to take on the rival who still retains his traditional starter, as will be the case for this game. Every other trainer apart from gym leaders in the Pokemon League will have their regular normal mode teams. The Champion, the gym leaders and Elite Four will all have their challenge mode teams at normal mode levels. I'm able to eventually take out my rival Snivy after chipping away at it with slow damaging moves and get shown around the Pokemon Center, where I get access to Pokeballs and a town map. Neat. Also, a great touch the creator of the game added was that the second clerks in the marts would be able to sell rare candies as well as many other handy items like shards and heart scales later on. This minimises the reason to use PK Hex. Finally, after all of this yapping, we can leave Aspertia City and get our very first encounter of the run in Purloin. Unbeknownst to me at the time, this purple kitty was coming all the way to the Pokemon League to take out one of Pokemon's greatest threats to a vanilla Nuzlocke. More on that when the time comes. We quickly get introduced to the former champion of Older and are hurried along to Floccesy Town, where our rival is training, but not without a cheeky encounter first in the ranch. Route 20 gives me the surprisingly solid Kricketot. This guy evolves way before the first gym, giving us a simply amazing asset in our pockets for the early game. We can go to Floccesy Ranch and get ourselves a Bidoof before taking on the rival. He still only has his starter Snivy, whom I can handle with ease now that I have more Pokemon. After a quick stroll through the woods, we encounter Team Plasma, with the Herdier in their possession. We save it and can backtrack to Aspertia City after a pit stop in Alder's place, where we get the Metal Box to start the Metal Rally that we're really gonna focus on for the entire game. Promise I'm totally gonna talk to this guy all the time after this exact moment. Now to take on Cheren, the first gym leader in the game. Luckily, Alder gave us Oran Berries on our way out of Floccesy Town to make our lives a little easier in this fight, as Cheren has 3 solid normal types and he's more than happy to spam the move Work Up, and the Patrat can slow you down with its detects, making it invulnerable for a turn at a time. Luckily for us, we have a couple of pretty solid options, unlike my first attempt, which, as I said, wiped here. I genuinely probably think that I had the single worst encounters from every single location. I went with the tried and true tactic of raw dogging him with my simple Bidoof. After a couple of defense curls, we were taking absolutely no damage and could roll straight through his team with no dramas. We take those wins and take the basic badge along with the TM for Workup. We now have a higher level cap, meaning we can evolve Bidoof into Bibarel and get access to Burbank City, walking into what's not a very good moment between Roxie and her father. I also checked the documentation to see whether we could get a pair of encounters in the complex like you can in Blaze Black 2 Redux and Volt White 2 Redux, but that is not the case, and I pick up an unknown in the Shaking Grass. This one's actually incredible. With it having a modest nature, it's already pretty decent, but its hidden power was Psychic with a base power of 68. So close to the perfect number. But the timing on this is just comical, as Roxie is our barrier to the mainland. Punk Starlet has a team of 3 poison types, all of which are free fodder for the letter A. Yet again, we have a single Pokemon win us the entire battle against the gym leader, but with Burgh on the horizon, that won't last for very long. Upon exiting the gym, we get to skip the PokeStar Studios tutorial, because who doesn't love spending 10 minutes of their life yapping and talking to a green screen? Wait, that's kind of what I'm doing now, isn't it? After taking both the grunt at the pier and the runaway on Route 20, we get to see a conversation between Roxie and her father reconvening, and her father tells us that he'll be more than happy to take us into the mainland to continue our gym challenge. Route 4 gives us a Spinder, but at least now we can head to the sewers, where Team Plasma's in hiding. This place has some interesting stuff, and we meet the tar out of the grunts before getting ourselves a few Pokemon in Dustox from the sewers, a Mawile in Relic Passage, and a male Burmy in Castelia Garden, allowing us to get a Mothim of our very own. We sling our way through Burgh's gym, and go head to head with the eccentric Exterminator, and I go for Whirlpool with my Eviolite Clamperl to start chipping it as it goes down. I can stay in thanks to Shell Armor and at least begin chipping away at Leavanny's health as I go out to Mothim on the Razor Leaf, and then go for a massive Bug Bite before being put to sleep by Grass Whistle. I decide to take a risk and stay in a turn to try and protect to no avail, and have to go across to Mawile, who can then intimidate it, as I pivot and then proceed to hit it with a good Leech Life before heading back to Mawile and then Mothim on the heal turn. After some Intimidate drops, Mawile is actually pretty safe, so I'm able to chip it all the way out of here. Carablast is in, and from here I can go to Babarrel on the Aerial Ace before setting up and rolling out, before swinging into Spinder on the Shelmet, and rolling out of Castelia City, still deathless for the run. Upon exiting Castelia, we run into a blonde-haired individual who's analysing the power of Pokemon. I don't know what he wants with us, as we're using weak Pokemon, but hey, let him cook. Joey has a top percent Rattata, I guess we just have top percent shitters. He wants a fight on Route 4, so we go and grant his wishes, and sling Spinder at his Magnemite to go for Stab Strength to 3-hit KO, as his ace Clink comes in. I start out by going to Clamperl and clamping to do some solid damage, and try killing with Lipard, but he decides to use a Hyper Potion. And after an assist, I get grinded by Gears taking huge damage. At least Babarrel could finish the job, but that Clink was more threatening than it deserved to be. The Desert Resort lets me get my own rock type in Roggenrola to join the ranks. Relic Castle gives me the Pokemon I hate more than any other in Chingling. Don't get me wrong, I like Chimecho, she's the goat in Explorers, but god I just hate this thing. But at least we can head to Nimbasa City now. And I ignore the battle subway as I'll be allowing myself the TMs in there at a later point. But I am going to ban the items completely, as if I was rocking around with a Choice Band, Spinder with Strength in the mid-game of a vanilla Trashlock, that'd probably kinda defeat the point, wouldn't it? Anyway, we can swing out to routes 5 and 16, getting Pachirisu and accidentally running from my route 16 encounter or something silly before heading into Lost Lawn Forest and picking up a Mightyena. It's now where I go for a trip into the amusement park, on the roller coasters, fighting the privileged rich kids around every corner, and get told I'm too slow before playing Dress to Impress with Elesa's gym trainers. Elesa herself has a newly added Joltik, which isn't really anything too special, just a bug with insane moves, but it's still a bug, so it's pretty weak. I lead with Boldore against her Emolga and try to hit a big rock slide as she switches to Joltik, who dodges our rocks. Unfortunately for her, she eats them on the next turn. A switch to Chimecho on the Fluffy brings Emolga back into the field, as Elesa is super horny in this fight to click Volt Switch. Honestly, it's kinda crazy. I get switched out on 245 times, and then have to switch out to Chimecho for Pachirisu. Emolga then goes for Aerial Ace as I charm the Zebra on the switch in. I try to dig dodging the attack to do a rather pitiful amount of damage a few times, and get it down to low health to go to Mightyena, who can dig and do a hell of a lot more damage, taking it out and also killing Fluffy as I can swing to Lipard to finish off the Emolga and at last winning the 4th badge for our troubles. It's at this point where I can get the TMs from the battle subway, after a cheeky little double battle where I made Nate do all the work. I also get the stones here as I was unsure whether they were available anywhere else in the game. We then beat up an entire ass biker gang with one whole member and make him run away, crying over the Driftfield drawbridge, and get ourselves the driller himself, Hero, on the bridge as our encounter. In Driftfield, we interrupt some lore with old and new Team Plasma grunts yelling at each other, as we make a little detour up Route 6 first, getting an encounter of Cast Form in the Weather Institute, which still counts as Route 6 in this game. We then get asked by Rude, a former Team Plasma member, for a battle, and I forget that Herdias carry Crunch as a rule of thumb, and my Chimecho gets torn into pieces. But at least he gave me a Ditto, so that's nice, and we have a move tutor now, which is neat. We're able to head into Clay's gym, where we can dodge a bunch of optionals because I know where to go, and enjoy using our Clam Pearl yet again for something awesome. Clay's encounter is a new shiny Onyx, with Explosion in his team ready to blow at any moment. So I lead with Cast Form to try and set up weather and ball out on the Crocorock as Onyx comes in and blows the fuck up on my Clam Pearl, who shrugs off the blow. Sand Slash is in, but it's still raining, so I go for a nice Iron Defense and Water Gun to do around 75%, forcing him to use his Hyper Potion on Sand Slash instead of Excadrill, thankfully. One more Water Gun takes out the Armadillo as his Ace Exca comes out. Thanks to Shell Armor, we're still pretty safe here, and I hit it with a Whirlpool before pivoting into Mightyena and digging to do about 50%. One more then takes it out, giving us yet another badge. We also now have access to the Pokemon World Tournament, and are part of the opening act. After some battles against some extremely oddly underleveled and really strong Pokemon, we get tipped off about Team Plasma in the docks, and then discover their home base. Evidently, this is an ambush. This then forces us into a couple of tag battles with the homies, before we get yeeted out by the Shadow Triad. I then went into Relic Passage and got the very real Volcarona, before going back up Route 6 and getting the HMs for Surf and Fly. I swing back through Verbank to get a Horsey in the water, and a special where I get a Love Disc as the starter is classed as a gift encounter in my eyes. Miss Stroughton Cave then gives me Gerda, and unfortunately as this is not Black and White 1, Guidance Chamber is not a real place. We then pick up a really neat encounter in Chargestone Cave, with Plusle hopping on the bandwagon, as Baton Pass with setup is just simply amazing. Upon arrival in Miss Stroughton City, we get our very own Master Ball and are introduced to the quote, sexy Latina in Skyla. I go north to get a Route 7 and Celestial Tower encounter beforehand, picking up both Ninjask and Duskull, two Pokemon who you see a lot more of later. We're going to ignore that my dumbass went all the way up the tower thinking I had to ring the bell, wasting valuable EXP on my Mons and EVs, but it's okay, nothing died. Now comes the biggest fight of the run so far, Skyla. And guess who forgot to record the footage of this fight because he was being a little piggy eating dinner like the gremlin he is. If you said me, you would be right. Look at this team and then look at my box and tell me what I have that is feasibly switching in and beating Swanna. If you guessed nothing, you'll be right. So considering how smoothly we've coasted through everything so far, surely we'll get out just fine with no deaths. So we kind of didn't. At first, I switched into Cast Form to try set up the Sun on Swanna so Surf would be nerfed, and then proceeded to get slammed and outsped by a critical hit Surf to the nads, meaning I had to swing in a Pachirisu. And you're not going to believe who got outsped and died to the 30% crit roll. Pachirisu. Yeah. Plusle kind of had to clean up from there, and between the other guys we made it out, We made it out of her gym by the skin of our teeth and get shipped across to Lentimars Town on the flight, as there's rumours that Team Plasma are causing a stir out east. We get a little lore dump and then head over toward Reversal Mountain, where I get a couple encounters in Sandslash, Shieldon, and Shuppet. Yeah, Shieldon, in a trashlocke. More on that in the end. Bastiodon now becomes our great wall as we get to tag along with Bianca through the doubles in Reversal Mountain. After taking her through and making sure she doesn't die, we can explore around Undella Town, but we can pick up Whiscash in the town bay, and then Cluster out in the proper bay. Before heading out toward the next gym in Opelucid though, we get to have another Duke with the rival. He leads the fully evolved Unpheasant, and I lead with Firo to go for Aerial Aces, as he can probably predict my flies with Detect. And I then switch to Plusle and Charge Beam takes it out. I Volt Switch later and I can go to Kricketune as I forgot to level my Ninjask up. A triplet of X's is enough to take out the Snake, and I swing to Seadra on the Simisear to Surf, and we get past the rival with a little trouble but no death. Route 13 gives me a Coots Boggers special with Carnivine joining the team. And I can also get the Prism Scale in Undella Pokemon Center to evolve our starter in this game, rather than using the Deep Sea Scale to get a Gorbis. Once we arrive in Lakanosa Town, rather than being allowed to go to the Pokemon Center and heal my Pokemon, we get dragged away against our will to go to some old lady's house, and get a massive lore dump about Kyurem before running into one of the leaders of Team Plasma along our rival. And I fully expected Serperior to get doubled down on here, but no! The AI decides I'm more tasty and juicy for them, and Serperior gets to kill Cryogonal. I just protected for the time being and allowed him to keep cooking as he then takes out Sneasel, and we're able to handle the Grunt's Mons to get away safely. Route 12 gives me a Lopunny from the Devil's Grass, and Village Bridge holds a Stunfisk, a surprisingly handy special attacker with good bulk. Route 11 gives me Glameow, adding a new pet to the family, and before looking at the next gym, we raced through to Route 9 and got a great Pokemon in Fluffy. Shopping Mall 9 allows me to get the vitamins to begin adding some EVs to my Pokemon, with them able to gain 100 in any stat I decide upon. Thanks to the breeder on Route 5 having the EV berries for sale, I'm also able to remove them and add to them as I please. Now though, it's time for us to take on Drayden, who at face value is probably the hardest gym leader that we've faced so far. We're going to use Gorbis here and set up some iron defenses before getting some rain up as we get Dragon-tailed out of here. Moista can then take out Druddigon with a Frost Breath as we get whacked with Flagon's Earth Power and can then take it out. Altari is in and I'm able to hit it with a big Frost Breath as well, as Haxorus then switches me out into Bastiodon, who's able to do decent shit before getting tailed to Dusclops. I know he has Shadow Claws, so I can swing back to Bastiodon and Ancient Power to kill it off, winning the Legend Badge for our troubles. We then sling ourselves across to Drayden's house to learn some lore and hear some massive noise outside to bear witness to literal terrorism from Team Plasma, as they shoot ice into Opelucid City. Once more, Zinzlin is running around with grunts, and they're spread around the city going after the DNA splices to fuse Kyurem into its true form. We run about beating the grunts and then have to face Zinzlin again, but this time Cloyster sweeps him with no issues. Team Plasma discovers that the splices were being hidden within the gym, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, that they're in the place where the strongest gym trainer is. We then have to beat a member of the Shadow Triad up, and the one we face is Child's Play. We do learn, however, that we were just to be a decoy so they could get away without us stopping them any further than we already had. Drayden then recommends we go to Humalo City to go and fight the water gym leader in Marlon. It's like the fish. You get it? The fish. Ha 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 ha. Before we go to take him on though, I go and get my encounters, with Humalo City singing us a Relicanth, Route 22 giving me Basculin, Seaside Cave netting me Intimidate Hitmontop, Route 23 giving me Dodrio, and lastly a Glalie in the Giant Chasm. This encounter probably would have been better if I'd delayed it, to be honest, as the grass looked so much better, but hey, beggars can't be choosers, and if you don't look all the time, you don't always know what you're gonna get. Marlon, unlike any fight to this point, is using a weather team. Bad Pokemon like the ones generally in my box aren't exactly going to be equipped to deal with that, especially considering when my cast form, my main weather threat, was annihilated by Skyla. In retrospect, teaching Thunder probably would have been a better idea here, but we make do with what we've got, considering I didn't even realise that I could get the TM at this point. Either way, let's get the last badge. He leads Wailord, and I lead off with Carnivine. To my own dismay, I'm actually slower than a Wailord, but I can at least take it out with a Power Whip. I get confused on the switch in next turn, and then send it to try and take out the Manta Ray, before self-hitting and slinging Gorbis at it. Actually, what is Gorbis? I really don't know, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, in the time I yacked, we hit ourselves and nearly died, forcing a switch to Plusle to go for Charge Beam and try and sweep the rest of Marlon's team. Caracosta unfortunately prevents that, and I kinda figured I was dead considering every water move was rain boosted here. I Volt switched out to Dusclops with Eviolite, who could at least T-Punch to take out Grandpa, leaving just Big Jelly in the back. I didn't exactly realise I was dead to crit, and stayed in on the Shadow Ball, before firing back with a decent enough payback to force the berry to be used. I obviously have to switch here, and managed to get Critical Hit and O-Code on my Carnivine. What a great idea that was. Not. Plusle then does just not quite enough as the Skull proceeds to burn Fearow. Marlon heals here, so I go for Drill Peck to get some chip off and go to Ampharos, who really never stood a chance and also got outsped. At least Plusle could finish right. I was more than happy to sack Vero at this point, but it managed to pull out the crit at just the right time, getting the wave badge. Holy, that was a mad fight for a vanilla game, huh? It's not over yet though. We still have to beat Team Plasma and the Pokemon League and so much more, so strap in. After a quick wander to Route 23 to get the Chorus Mission, we can sling out east from the Goon Cave and run into Marlon again, who's unintentionally alerted Team Plasma to our arrival, but at least we have a way in and can pound our way through tons of grunts. Oh, and Zinzlin, who has the same team as the other 300 times, cool guy, right? Dude literally booted us off the ship for beating his ass too hard. So we fall into the Undella Bay and drown. That's the end of the run. We're dead. We're then told of a major disturbance in the giant chasm, as Cheren tells us that Plasma might be going for Kyurem, so we obviously have to tail them. Upon arrival, we gotta fight a couple dudes, and after picking some locks, solving puzzles, and getting some sick munchies, we can go to the hull of the ship, where Colress awaits us with a pretty stacked team of techie guys. Yep, I ignored Zinzlin this time, because this dude is so ass that he does not deserve this 15 seconds of fame he's getting right now. Seriously, why the fuck is this guy so constantly in our business and so ass at battling at the same time? Like, please leave me alone as if the other 3 batterings weren't enough for you. I think that's enough Zinzlin for one day. We go to lock in here, as Colress's Cling Clang can set off with some shift gears and absolutely finish me off in the blink of an eye. So just how can we stop him? I lead our newly obtained Hitmontop to drop it and go for a quick Brick Break crit that procced Sturdy. I knew he was healing here, so I just repeated it and this time obviously did a lot less. One more would have been easily enough to kill and bring in Behiem, but instead he Volt switches to Magnezone, who takes heaps of damage on the switch. One switch from me to Dusclops means I'm able to take it out and Whiscash claps Medang's cheeks. Behiem has some wild coverage, so I've got to ping Fearow at it, and to my surprise he just goes for Calm Mind, which was actually really surprising. I return on the gears to break its air balloon as he sets up, terrifying me, and after some quick math, Bastiodon can Iron Head to kill it off, and Whiscash finishes the job. We now get access to the captain's room, where Ghetsis resides, so we'd fight him here, right? Wrong. We get a big spiel about how he was planning some things and some random stuff, but like, honestly, who cares? I only care about my poopy Pokemon. After this, we get a cool moment where an evil team actually gives back a Pokemon they stole, with our rival actually getting his little sister's Purloin back, even though it was evolved to a Liepard. We're then also required to beat all 3 members of the Shadow Triad now too, with them actually just having 6 Pawniards and 3 random ass Pokemon. It's now though where the story reaches its pinnacle, as Ghetsis awaits us in the deepest part of Giant Chasm, with full control of Kyurem. Ghetsis pops off, rambling about his ideals and summoning Kyurem, and before he can try and finish us off, a fiery blast saves us in the nick of time. Look, it's natural Gropius Harmonia, with some weird ass fire dragon thing or whatever. We get some insane cutscenes, which would have gone crazy to see on DS in 2012. But as an unk at the ripe old age of 23, I don't remember seeing this when I was 11 or 12. Unfortunately for N, his Reshiram gets completely cooked by Kyurem, who fuses together with it, becoming a disgusting 750 base stat total monster powerhouse. Wait, what? What's that? Hitmontop can outspeed and kill with some EVs and a fighting gem as it's the Elite Four split? Oh, awesome! Now for the big fight though, Ghetsis. Ghetsis' lead is invulnerable to damage from my Hitmontop, so I go to Liepard and have some time to Hone Claws, as a single Night Slash slices the coffin open. Now, I obviously can't kill Drapion with this, so I swing Whiscash at it to slap it up with a huge EQ. Mothim comes out on Earthquake from Seismitoad and Energy Balls, leaving it looking like Majin Buu after a Ki Blast to the stomach. Unfortunately, not going back to get Butt Buzz costs Mothim the chance for a chain kill against his ace Hydreigon. Hitmontop is able to Intimidate drop the physical Hydra, and a CC slaps all 6 of its cheeks. From here, Bastiodon nearly clapped Electros, and Whiscash finished it off, with us actually making it out deathless, unlocking the doors to the Elite Four. We're not going to go there just yet though. We're going to pick up 2 electric types, in Pikachu and Electabuzz prior to the league. Although we can't go in without quickly fighting our rival one last time to flex our muscles in his face. Electabuzz slams Unpheasant as Bouffalont comes through with some insane physical moves and more, so I sling Hitmontop at it, taking the critical Earthquake before riding the bull out of Victory Road, taking Simisear out with Unk, and Serperior with the now online Ninjask. Now it's real. We're here at the Elite Four with our terrible Pokemon and an awfully average box. So, with some of vanilla Pokemon's biggest threats in our way, with things like Life Orb Metagross, Sheer Force Life Orb Druddigon, Focus Sash Dragon Dance Haxorus, and Guts Flame Orb Conkeldurr, seriously, what the heck do I do? Let's take a deep dive into my Pokemon team that I will be bringing to the Wishy Washy White 2 Elite Four. The first member, as mentioned all the way back at the beginning of the video, is Liepard. This guy with Night Slash, Protect, Fake Out, and Set Up in Hone Claws will be a great utility Pokemon for both Chantal and Caitlyn. Second on the squad comes Ninjask. This guy turns out to be absolutely pivotal, with it having Baton Pass and Swords Dance, along with it having access to Speed Boost to pass on every single time without fail, thanks to me teaching it Protect as well to ensure this. Third up is Babarrel. This guy was intended originally to come as something of a counter to Grimsley if I couldn't find anything. With some setup and 102 base power returns, it's pretty decent, but this was more of a backseater, I can't lie. We can't go to this league without bringing our beefy bean and cheese burrito, Dusclops. This guy is not messing around with its insane bulk, and is actually really vital for our strategies on the league with Marshall and Iris. We're also bringing Mothim along. This guy's been pretty consistent and can cook things through the league with its access to Quiver Dance and great coverage with Psychic Energy Ball and more. And the final Pokemon for us is gonna be Intimidate Hitmontop. This guy turns out to be amazing for Grimsley and can handle some Pokemon on Iris. I start off with Chantal, as she appeared to be the easiest fight for me, and after just one Swords Dance on Ninjask, I was able to Baton Pass to Liepard, who could be passed the attack boost and farmed her whole team easily, including the Scarfed Chandelure thanks to our speed EVs. Now let's take on Caitlyn. This is probably the second biggest threat on the Elite Four. I lead with Ninjask to Swords Dance not once but twice in order to be able to try and sweep with Liepard. So on turn 3, I pass the baton and follow up, with a Night Slash and Reuniclus follows suit. Turned out that when Metagross came in, I expected to kill, but a certain silly Pokebron forgot to change his item from Scope Lens to the Metronome so he could stack increasing damage, meaning we only did about 95% before losing it to a big retaliation hit. Thankfully, it died to its own Life Orb so it didn't get healed up or anything. I think if it did, I probably would have liked. Sigilyph is chill, and with some pivots I can get in Mothim and kill it, and Gothitelle to win against Caitlyn. Now we take on Grimsley, and the gambling man is really not afraid to ball hard. And I can lead with Ninjas to get a couple of easy kills before going out to Hitmontop to in-team drop the Scrafty, and it's actually able to sweep straight away from there. The final member of the Elite Four we're fighting is Marshall, who leads off with Throw, and I Protect to scout what he's doing turn 1. I then go to Ninjask on the Storm Throw and Protect, playing very slowly here before passing out to Hitmontop to intimidate it further. I can go to Dusclops and Toxic Stall it until it dies. Yep, you heard me right, Toxic Stall with Pokebron. This is the one strategy I always despise, and I saw it as my only option. I did the same thing with Saw, poisoning it and switching through my Pokemon until I could go to Mothim and Psychic to kill it off. The big Guts Conkeldurr came in, and I swung through my Hitmontop to drop its attack back to regular before stalling burn damage with Ninjask and passing it once more to the top. Once it was low enough, I could kill with Mothim like I did with Sork. I then proceeded to stall out Mienshow's bounces with Ninjask, setting up Swords Dance on the first turn and protecting on the landing before killing it and Lucario to unlock the door to Iris. 5mon Iris doesn't sound too bad when you think this is just vanilla Pokemon, but as you've probably noticed in the Elite Four, some of the teams and Pokemon are really imposing. It's not until you see her team where you realise that this is something you'd be more inclined to see in a ROM hack like a Drayano game. With great items, insanely powerful Pokemon, insane movesets, and so much more, she really is imposing here, so let's take her down. I lead Hitmontop to kill Hydreigon with a close combat as Druddigon comes in. I send one more at it with the chance for a crit, and then let the top fall before bringing in Ninjask to kill it with X Scissor. Aggron comes in, and with Rockhead head smashes, I really don't want to stay in. So I go to the barrel to try and get off a waterfall, but honestly that went about as well as you could expect. It's at this point that I realised as long as I can live head smashes out, I can then stall this guy out of PP. After a rather long time, I miscounted slightly, and accidentally sent Ninjask in on the final double edge. So I then did a couple of checks for a few more turns, and realised we're good to go. So here begins the reason Ninjask was the MVP of the Elite Four. And probably the run if we're being honest. Maybe even above Dorbus. It's able to set up Swords Dancers, and then 2-hit KO Aggron. Yeah, I'm almost as shocked at that as you, even with +6, that's crazy. Then kills Archeops, slices Lapras, and then it leaves her ace Haxorus in, with a Focus Sash, so I know it's never dying to a hit here. I proc it and 07 to Ninjask after its incredible carry in this fight, and I know Iris is going to heal, so I Toxic with Dusclops and predict slowly by switching to waste a turn as she goes for a massive Outrage. I can see kill after one more Poison Chip and protect, finishing the Outrage as well. And from here, all I need to do is dodge a Shadow Claw crit, but then Haxorus hits itself, letting us take it out and crowning us as the champions of Pokemon Wishy Washy White. An incredible run with actually a surprisingly massive amount of ups and downs, from being finished by Skyla to then finishing it off with a sweep from Ninjask of all mons. Truly, this was one of my favourite mons in recent months, and I really enjoyed the game. It rarely felt like I didn't have much of an answer to things, and I think my only criticism that was a couple of the Pokemon that were available actually felt a little too good, like Bastiodon being available in Reversal Mountain. But hey, without Bastiodon as well, I don't have a great wall against Drayden and quite a bit more, so the complaint isn't really justified. Overall though, this game felt super balanced, and I think doing what I did with EVs and the battle subway items was really good for the game, with the TMs being available after the 4th gym, but the EVs being blocked until Drayden. I'd give it a solid 8 or 9 out of 10. And for a game that doesn't really change anything apart from the wild encounters, it was actually done super well, with the power curve and everything. If you did enjoy the video, do leave a like and consider subscribing, as it helps me out a lot and lets me know you guys enjoy this content on the channel. Also, a huge shout out to our channel members and Twitch subs, Empori and David. If you want to shout out an exclusive role in my Discord, which you should all join by the way, link in the description, you can get sneak peeks and so much more. You can do this today by becoming a member down below. But that's all from me, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.